Hi there, my name's Alexa Fraser. I'm a puppet, textile, and costume artist from St. Catharines. I'm very happy to be going into my 6th season of working with carousel players, and I couldn't be happier to be working with such a fantastic organization. I just love all the work they do in our community, and I want to thank Monica Defoe and Kate Leathers and the whole Carousel Players crew for the fantastic work they do. So today we're going to create a giant puppet. This is a parade style puppet used for pageants and parades, and it takes a minimum of 3 people to operate. We've got our main body stick here, and then we have 2 hand sticks over here. So I'm going to take you through step by step on how to build this. Puppet building, as I'll explain later, is a lot of layering. So keep this in mind because it's a bit of a journey. It takes a lot of steps, but it's a great project to do together as a family or a group of friends. There are some steps that involved hot glue, large scissors, so I definitely have an adult operating that part. A hot tip about hot glue: use a chopstick because you have to glue and then kind of press the object and the hot glue together to seal. So rather than using your fingers, potentially burning yourself, it is very hot. It can really burn yourself. Just take a chopstick, give it a good poke. Okay, let's get started. All right, so let's get started. I've taken a big piece of cardboard. You can get some large boxes of cardboard at furniture stores. If you go to the back door where people pick up their deliveries, just ask for a large box. I got this one from the Brick. So I've drawn a large oval for my face, about 2 feet tall, 24 inches, and about 20 inches wide. You can go bigger or smaller if you like. And then I've drawn a second line about 3 inches away from the first one all the way around. So I'm going to cut this out. So now we're going to shape the head. So here's our head, top, bottom. I've drawn these triangles at the top and then 2 along the side at the points where our face is shaped. If you're doing a different shape, maybe you're making a cat or a dog or some sort of circle, just make those as many darts, these triangles, as you need to make your shape. So I'm going to cut out these triangles that I've put here, and then we're going to overlap them to make our shape. So now we're going to shape the head. So here's our head, top, bottom. I've drawn these triangles at the top and then 2 along the side at the points where our face is shaped. If you're doing a different shape, maybe you're making a cat or a dog or some sort of circle, just make those as many darts, these triangles, as you need to make your shape. So I'm going to cut out these triangles that I've put here, and then we're going to overlap them to make our shape. And just like that, we have a 3D shape. Boop-a-doo-doo. This is the back side. Other side. Front. So you can spend a bit of time just kind of shaping this the way you want until you're happy. Just bending the sides. You want to kind of go from the inside, shape things out. But we're going to be adding up features. So this is just our base. So now we're going to shape some features to then paper mache over. So we want to keep going in the 3D direction. So my face is a sun. I'm going to add the sun spikes later, but right now I want him to have a nose and some eyes that are 3D. The mouth I'm just going to paint on, but everything is up to you what you want to do. So to get these shapes, I'm just going to take some balled up newspaper and put it on top of here and start making my shape. I'll show you what I'm doing in a minute. And how we're going to get that newspaper to stay there is masking tape. I really recommend masking tape over other tapes like Scotch or duct tape, because the masking tape is a little bit kind of porous and the paper mache takes to it. Okay. So I'll show you there. This is the beginning of my nose. So I'm going to add probably a ball of newspaper there. And for my eyes, I'll do maybe a few crumped up pieces of paper to make the eye shape and cover it with masking tape. If you want to really add some solid features, you could use some cardboard. So this is a strip of cardboard. I put a bend in the middle and then one on either side and folded it like this. And here you could just take some hot glue, put it on these kind of pads, add some really solid shape to your nose. So here we go. Features, eyes and nose. This is 2 pieces of newspaper balled up each to make the eyes and the nose. And you don't have to cover the whole newspaper surface with masking tape because we're going to paper mache over it all. So just enough to hold it in place. Because of our darts, I've got some angles here. So if you want to spend some time, you can add a bit of padding with newspaper just to even things out, maybe add some more shape. Just add a bit of newspaper here so this angle isn't as sharp. Maybe fill out the chin a bit. If you don't want to do that, don't. It's up to you. So I'm going to add a little bit, I think, around my jawline and chin. And then I think that'll be good. And some balled up newspaper along the jawline. Just giving a bit more definition to my face there. You might notice as I'm working, this thing is sliding all around. I'm kind of wrestling with it. If you're working as a group, family, or some friends together, you can work as a team and hold it in place while another person tapes down. I'm all by myself. So you can wrestle too. Do it by yourself also. Whatever you want to do here. Okay, so I'm happy with my face shape. I'm going to cut out my hands. I wanted to make a quick note about head shape before we move on from it. If you are making an animal puppet, especially a bird, I would follow the first steps, and then for the beak, I would use the cardboard. Get some cardboard strips to make a cone shape. Any kind of strip that you use, make yourself a little fold at the bottom that you glue. Put glue on the bottom of the fold, boop, put that on the face, then you have your shape. So you could do a bunch of these to make a cone shape. Hands. So my sun puppet has human-like features. So my hands are just kind of going to be human hands. If you're doing an animal, think paws. If you're doing a bird, you might want to just have drapey fabric attached to the arm sticks. We'll talk about costuming in a little bit. Or you could do like a large strip of cardboard, maybe peaked, to make your wings. Again, get to Googling. Okay, so I have my hand shapes. I'm going to do one hand just like this, and another hand giving the thumbs up. So this hand's pretty easy. This hand will be a bit more challenging. I'll show you what I've drawn. This is my regular hand. I'm gonna cut out. This is my thumbs up hand. Looks a little funny. This is the thumb, the fingers. I've drawn them kind of sideways because I'm gonna cut them out and then kind of curl them under. Like when So here's my hand. My regular non-thumbs up hand. So as you might have seen in the sped up video, I cut around the perimeter first, and then I went in for the details here. I added, my hand has a bit of a wrist because we're going to attach our stick for our giant puppet arms to the back here. So I'm not going to paper mache this hand. I'm just going to paint it. If you want to just do this for your hands, awesome. My puppet's going to be a bit of a mishmash because I want it to be a teaching puppet and show just some variety. You can spend kind of as much or as little as time on this as you want. You can kind of dive deep, get super detailed. Also, put some paint on this, we got a hand. You're good. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to my thumbs up hand and make it a little more detailed. If you want to make this regular hand more 3D, more detailed, cut out 2 of these, and then we would just sandwich some newspaper, balled up newspaper in the middle, sandwich, and you could bend the fingers a bit on the top layer of the sandwich and then paper mache that way. Okay, here we go. So I've cut out my thumbs up hand. I'm going to hot glue. I've bent the fingers, just bending the cardboard. I'm going to hot glue these guys in place and then add some folded up newspaper along the thumb and along here, which is the bed of my thumb. So look at your real hands for inspiration, or if you're doing a pet, look at the pet's paws. Just take inspiration from the real thing. Also in the written instructions, there is a diagram showing how to sandwich the regular hands in paper mache. If my explanation didn't do the trick. All right, thumbs up. So I've just added newspaper along to make my thumb a bit more 3D. This is the bed of my thumb. The fingers I glued to the bed of the thumb and then also taped just to get to hold them in place. And then we'll paper mache on top of all this. If you want to keep going, get really detailed, add some more padding, you can go to town. All right, so let's paper mache. Paper mache. We're just going to use a simple mix of white glue and water. Some paper mache recipes involve flour, but I don't think it's necessary, and also it can cause your creation to rot over time. So let's avoid that. We're going to use 2 parts glue to 1 part water. I just kind of mix it in. It doesn't have to be exact. So I'm going to pour some just in this old plastic container. This part's a little messy. I'm wearing my apron. I have some rags handy or paper towel just to keep yourself covered. So I have my glue. I'm gonna pour some water in. And this is a paintbrush I use just for paper mache. Just give it a nice stir till it has a nice kind of paintable consistency. This is, you can really eyeball this, so don't worry, it doesn't have to be exact. I just want to be able to easily stir it. All right, so that's our mixture. We're going to use either brown craft paper or newspaper. This is the packaging for the craft paper. It's postal wrapping paper. I got it at Michael's. Newspaper is also great, so whatever you want to use. We want to use both of these because they're a porous paper. If we're using just like white computer paper, it's woven too tightly. It's not gonna kind of break down and absorb the glue in the way that we want. Okay, I'm gonna show you next step. A strip of the brown craft paper, I tore it out of the roll and then tore around all the edges. So none of them are the original straight edge. We want to tear this instead of cut it because it makes these exposed fibrous edges, and when you layer them, the seams will blend together more smoothly. What we want to do is just take our mixture and paint some glue onto a surface to part of it. We're not going to be doing the tear strips, put them in the glue, and squeegee them off. This is just very messy. We don't need to get, this is a messy job, this part, but we don't have to get that messy. So I have my painted on area, and then I can tear strips and start covering my head and just smooth them on like that. So I'm going to use the brown craft paper for the head, and then I'm going to use newspaper for my thumbs up hand, just to show you. And I'm kind of putting them on in different directions. So I went this way, that way, up and down. So it's not all just one direction, and you can kind of just smooth with your thumb. And then when we are covered totally with paper mache, we're going to do a final coat of the watered down glue to seal it all in. So this is, like I said, a bit of a messy job, a bit of a time-consuming job. I'm going to put my earphones in and listen to some music while I do it. If you're working as a group, you know, you can take turns, chat, and the time will fly by. Okay, so I've done a little bit of the face here, and I just wanted to show you before I go on. This is the brown part is the paper mache area. As you start going over your features, the part that you have newspaper and masking tape, it might give you a bit of trouble as you are beginning, but the more paper mache area you have, the easier it'll get. So just keep kind of building that up and get the paper mache joining each other. And when we wet the paper and scrunch it up, it makes it more malleable and easier to move, and then a smoother result. And also, if the paper mache is kind of popping up and giving you any issues as you're getting it down, just paint a little bit of the glue where you need it to stick, and it'll hold in place until you can get some more surface area covered. Okay, let's keep going. My paper mache of my face is getting there. I just wanted to show you how to get around the features. Basically what we want to do is do strips all the way around, kind of in a circle around the feature, around the bump, and then around the edges as well. And then some little patches so you don't, to cover up the seams. You don't want visible seams and lines. You may have noticed as I'm going in the sped up video, like I said, if a part is sticking up, just dab a bit of glue on it. You can kind of squish in with the glue, and that'll help the fibers blend together. And as you're going with the paper mache, you kind of always want to be just smoothing, always be smoothing all along the edge, and that helps it all blend together better. Paper mache head. So the next stage is just to cover the whole surface, paper mache surface, with a thin layer of the watered down glue. Just paint it on thinly. You can squish down any parts where the paper mache pieces aren't joining, or you can see this, it's a visible seam. Just kind of squish it down. And then you can lay it out in the sun to dry, or inside, but the sun will speed things up. If you're in a bit of a hurry, you can start drying it with a hairdryer. Paper mache with newspaper on thumbs up hand. So we're gonna do the same process. Take a sheet of newspaper, tear all the edges so there's no hard edges, run it under some water, scrunch it up, squeeze out the excess water, and then we're going to paint on a thin layer of our glue. Tear a strip and smooth it on. And so I'm going to cover all these edges with my newspaper. Thumbs up, paper mache with newspaper. I'm gonna let this one dry. Yeah, same technique as with the craft paper. Use strips, as I'm sure you can see in the sped up video. Use strips to get around the details and grooves. Cover the whole thing with a thin layer of paint when you're done. Here is my head, finished paper mache with the craft paper. Looking pretty good. I like this craft paper because it's nice and sturdy. But newspaper is awesome too, as you'll see the dried results soon. I just painted some yellow on. My sun head is gonna be yellow. I just wanted to show you what it will look like without a primer. So I'm gonna paint the puppet head and hands with a white primer. I'm gonna use gesso. I got this at Michael's as well. You can get it online as well. And it just acts as a primer, a first layer, so that when your paint goes on, you don't have to put a second layer of paint on. Like if you're priming your walls to paint them, artists who paint on canvas prep their canvas with a coat of this gesso. You can also use white acrylic paint. So whatever you like. Also, if you don't want to do that, hey, pretty good. So it's up to you. My paper mache has some bumps, as it will once it dries. Pretty rock solid. So I'm gonna take some sandpaper and just go over it. You can just sand out any parts that aren't as smooth. If there's a little, you can see here, a little fold. So I'm gonna go over quickly sandpaper and then a coat of gesso and let that dry. I'm gonna also add, this looks kind of just like a guy right now, but since it's a sun, I'm gonna put some cardboard triangles around the outside of the circle. I'm not gonna paper mache those just so they have a different look, but I am gonna cover them in gesso. If you have a lot of features built up, if you've really put a lot of newspaper on there, you might want to make it a little lighter. This is pretty light. This is not a paper mache situation where we're paper macheing and then peeling off the paper mache off of the object and just having the paper mache. We are paper macheing on top of the cardboard and leaving it there. If it's very built up, you can go behind where it's built up to the inside, just cut the cardboard and pull some of the newspaper out now that you have your layer of craft paper, because it's sturdy. But that's optional only if you feel that it's getting a little heavy, but it should be fine. All right, so I'm gonna sand and gesso. Also, I wanna show you, this is my hand with just paint, no primer, not bad. So that's an option for you there, especially if you're working with younger children. This is great. Okay, let's do this. Made my sun some shades and added my my spikes around the edges, my sun spikes. So this is just cardboard. I cut out one, traced it. You can just kind of just measure things and mark them along with a marker just to get the right distance and spacing. I folded about a 1/2 inch under, so you give yourself a tab to glue along the bottom and attach. So whatever kind of details, accessories you want to add to your puppet head. I also can kind of just bend the cardboard a little bit to make it more malleable and to bend it to the grooves of your puppet head. So I've done that all around here. This is going to be my last spike there. I'm going to cover the cardboard spikes with the gesso primer. And for my sunglasses, I just laid a large piece of cardboard on top of the head, kind of marked the width and then the size of the eyes, and then I made some sides for the sunglasses, just measuring up from the side of the head. Again, I made myself a little tab here to attach, and I traced the tab for the other side, so I have two of the exact same. So I'm going to paint these black. I'm going to cover the spikes, paint them with the primer, and then I can start painting my puppet head. Use my thumbs up hand, paper mache with newspaper. Looking pretty good. Like I said, if you want to make your details more 3D, just keep building up with newspaper and masking tape, paper mache. I'm going to cover this one with white acrylic paint, just to show you how that works as compared to the primer gesso. I would give this a quick sand as well, just to smooth out any bumps. This is my flat hand. I'm going to cover this with the gesso primer. When you're working with cardboard, just along the sides, you might want to squish some paint in there too, because it'll show if it's not. So I'm going to paint my whole sun head yellow. I'm going to start it here with the back, the sides, and the spikes, and then work my way to the actual face on the inside, because I'm going to do some blending and some shading with some red and oranges. So I'll want the face paint to still be a little wet when I start doing that. So work my way in, except for I'm going to paint my eyes to show you how I would do that. So I'm going to put a layer of white around the circle, because we're going to go white of the eye, color of the eye, black pupil, and then a little white dot makes it look a little realistic, but I'll show you that up close. On the face, I've got the whole sun painted yellow here. I did a layer of white for the whites of the eyes, then a nice brown, and then I'm going to add black and then a dot of white. So you kind of have to go in layers. For the shadowing of the face, I'm going to use dark red for the darker parts of the face that get shadows, like under the nose, around the nose, under the eyes, maybe some up here, above my eyes. I would go in if I was doing a more detailed human face, on the cheekbones, underneath the mouth, and then I'm going to go with the orange for the parts of the face where the sun would hit, where the light hits. So bridge in the nose, up above my forehead, on my chin, on the top of my cheekbones. And then I'm going to blend them with together with a dry brush while the paint is still a little bit wet. If you want to do human skin tone, the colors to mix together are white, brown, yellow, red. Maybe a touch of green, just a little bit to make a realistic skin tone. And then the amount of brown that you add, more or less, makes the skin tone darker or lighter. Okay, so I'm going to stand up here and then you can see what I'm doing. I'm not going to do a ton of shadowing here. My son is a bit more cartoony, but you can really get detailed if you want. And again, it's like look in the mirror or look at your cat or dog for what their face looks like, your face looks like, where shadows hit or don't. All right, so I'm going to take my red, just go underneath the nose. If I was doing nostrils, I would do that here. I don't think my guy needs nostrils. Maybe some along here. Yep, up here. Along the forehead there. So yeah, this is kind of more shadowing I would do for a human face. I'm just doing it on my son to show you. And I'm gonna add some details on I'm gonna add some red and orange stripes on all my sun spikes, just for some detail. Oops, there we go. All right. Take my fairly dry brush. Really dry would be better. And because the paint's still wet, you can kind of squish down and wiggle, basically, to blend that together. If you want to mix in some of the base color that you have around, so in my case, it would be yellow. If you're doing skin, it'd be your skin tone. Kind of add that. So it's not just a splotch of dark color. Okay, so I'll go around and finish blending that. I'll come in with a real dry brush now that I've added the yellow and just keep blending. But I'll show you my orange first. So I'm going to take my orange. I want my orange a little lighter than I have it. Add a little yellow over here. A little more yellow. Okay. And I'm gonna go, it's basically this color once it's blended, but once we add a bit more yellow to the edges of this. And I'm gonna go there where light hits. So on the bridge of my nose, middle of the chin, cheeks. Great. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the time lapse just to speed things up. And you'll see me finish blending this. I'm gonna add my pupil and then a little dot of white. And I'm gonna make a did what I described. I put the dark shadows, the darker parts of the face, and then the orange where the sun hits more. And I went around with a dry brush around where I put that on. And then let it dry a little bit. And then there's a bit too much. And then so I came in with a yellow brush once it had dried a little and kind of went around it. Went around all the shading parts. So kind of a balance between like too much, too little, too much. So you can just play with it, keep going. And then the parts where I really want some of the darker red, I went back in and just added like a strong stroke of red on top of it. And it's good to, when you're working, just like step back, put it down, look at it, look at it from far away from across the room. I'm gonna add a nice, if you're looking for a realistic eye, you can add a dot of white right in the pupil where you basically want the puppet looking. Because when you look at a real eye, there's light from whatever light source is in that person's eye. So where's my friend going to be looking? So I'm going to put it right here. Put some down. And I'm going to do it at the same point. So it's a bit to the right on both. Or you could do it a bit to the left, but do the same on both eyes. If I wanted a more feminine eye, I could go in with some black eyelashes. You can add eyebrows if you want. And then around the sun, I just did layers of red, orange, yellow. Okay. So I'm going to do the same to my hands. Well, I have all this out. My palette is covered in paint. So are my paintbrushes. I'm just going to keep going. So I have my hands painted yellow. I'm going to stop and check where my thumbs are so that when my giant puppet hands are up, the thumbs are in the right spot. Also, it's not a big deal if your thumbs aren't in the right spot. No one's going to be checking. But if you are concerned with getting it right, just take a second, stop, look. So my thumbs up hand is my right hand, which means my flat hand will be my left hand. Where are my hands? Boop, boop. So I just want to make sure they're right. So I'm going to do some shading on these. I'll show you. On my flat hand, I'm going to keep it pretty simple, similar to my sun spikes, and just do some red, orange, and yellow. And then on my thumbs up hand, I'll get a little more detailed. So I'm just going to go boop. And then come in with the orange. And like I've been saying, when you're looking for doing shading, look at your own hand, hand of a friend. If you're doing paws for pets, look at their hands. You can get the layers. And like with the face, sometimes we have to build up the layers. So you're doing the coloring, maybe some shading. If it's an animal paw, gotta wait till it dries to do the cute little jelly beans on the paw, bottom of their paws. So I'm gonna let that dry for a minute before I do my yellow stripe. I'm gonna come over here to my thumbs up. You can see, here, I'll just move a little bit. Okay. So I'm gonna do some red shading around where my fingers curl. I'm gonna use some yellow for my thumb bed and just some red detail. So with a smaller brush, I'm going to come around here. And again, look for reference. Your fingers are kind of tucked when they're in a thumbs up. Nice. Do a bit of shading here. Bit of my knuckle. And then I'm going to come in with some, some orange. My nail bed. wrist. Here we go into some. Shading here. Be darker over here. Okay, so I'll take a moment to blend that in, make my red parts a little darker once this initial stroke has dried a bit. I'm gonna come back over here in a bit when this is dried a bit and add my stripe of yellow. Okay. Hey! So friends, we're almost there. It's time to assemble our giant puppet. We're putting our heads and hands on our sticks and then doing a costuming, which is very easy. Basically one very large t-shirt shaped piece of fabric. And then we'll have our puppet. So I put the sunglasses on my sun face here. And this is just a 2x8 piece of wood. I got it at Home Depot. It's $1.45, so cheap and cheerful. I cut it down by about 15 inches. So you can make it this tall. I'm quite tall. I'm 6 feet tall, so if I want to be carrying this puppet, it has to be pretty tall. So you cut it to suit your height and your needs. And I'm going to show you how I attached it and add some more reinforcements. The inside of our puppet head. I cut a hole the shape of our stick in the back. It's a square shaped hole, sorry. Trying to get a good angle here. I glued on the interior of the hole and then also all around the exterior with some hot glue. So this is definitely a job for parents in the family or friends, older friends who are comfortable with I used a combo of a box cutter and some big scissors. So definitely what I've done so far is glued around the hole and hot glued just at the top where the stick meets the head. And it's already very sturdy. I can swing this around. So I'm feeling very confident about that. But what I'd like to do is add some of these cardboard brackets. So all we're going to do is take a strip of cardboard that is about 2 inches wide, 6 inches long. And to make our hinge, we don't have to measure it, just kind of push it down to fold it around our stick. And then we have a nice cardboard clamp, cardboard and glue. It's amazing. So I'm going to take the inside of this, some hot glue, and just add some hot glue. All along the interior of this. And then make this one a little closer to the top. Squeeze it to fit around. And there we go. That is really going to secure our puppet head to our stick. So I'm going to do a few more of those along. We have our puppet head securely attached. We've got our clamps in the back. And this guy is ready for a puppet party. So now we're going to attach our hands. We have both our hands here dry, with our detailing and shading on our thumbs up, our flat hand with our similar details to our sun spikes. I want to say, if your cardboard is flat, as it dries, it might curl in on itself. And as we've been finding, this is a great malleable material, so you can just bend it back the other way if it has dried in one direction. So I have a couple of options for us for our sticks for our puppet hands. This is doweling from the hardware store from Home Depot. It's 7/8 by 4 feet. I already have a winner. This one is a little heavy, I find. This is a broomstick. I got it at the dollar store. It's $1.50. This is $6. I'm guessing your puppet arms might be conducted by a smaller member of your family or friend group, probably a kid. So these are much lighter than our main body. So I think broomstick is my choice, but feel free to use whatever you want. If you have a large stick, a found object can be great, free, and you're sustainable. So if you can find a large stick from a tree, that's a good option too. These come in lots of patterns. This is polka dot. I would cover this with some duct tape to make it grippier and maybe match my design more. This is some white duct tape, but duct tape comes in all kinds of colors and patterns these days. So I'm going to attach my sticks to my puppet hands in the same manner. Puppet hands right next to each other. We have our sticks. I've marked with a Sharpie on my sticks where they have to hit the end of the stick at the wrist so that they're the same length at the end. So I've just made a couple marks there, you can see. Also, you don't have to worry about it. You can eyeball it, whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm going to start here. Just going to lay down on the other side, trail of hot glue here. Lay this down. Careful not to touch the hot glue. I have my pre-folded clamp here. I'm going to put glue on the interior of this. I'm going to put 2 clamps. And if you'd like to do something on the back here to cover this up, the clamps and the pole, you can go ahead. You can do clamps all the way along this so that all you see is cardboard, and then paint the cardboard to match your hand color. But for now, I can show you. We're secure there. I'm just going to let that dry. And do the same thing on this hand. Lay this down just in the center. And clamp. And then clamp. Awesome. So this is my body fabric for the puppet. It's basically like a giant t-shirt shape. And I'll show you how I get that shape. So it is about 6 feet wide and 5 feet tall. I did a nice blue sky for my son to float in, and it's got a couple nice clouds in it. I got this fabric from the thrift store. I would recommend going there first. They have lots of great fabrics. You can also find some fun sheets or any old curtains. So there's definitely a cheap and sustainable way of getting your fabric. Perfect for giant puppets. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I measured this out, and I'm going to attach it to the puppet. So here's my puppet fabric. I've just I laid it along the top. In the center, I've attached it to my main pole just with glue about 12 inches down. we want the fabric to be able to flow freely. So just attaching it at the top. For the arm shape, I just want it to be attached here to my arm. Wait, I want the arm pole to be relatively straight. And then I just cut along here as an arc down. It's kind of similar to a t-shirt. And there's a diagram of this in our written instructions. So I'm just gonna take my glue, glue along the top edge of the fabric. Watch your fingers. Attach it to the back of my hand. Sorry. Attach it along here. I'm going to go underneath as well and just glue down on my pole a little bit. It's a few inches. Because again, we want a pretty free flow. All right, let's do the other side. Puppet is together. When all three people are standing, you're going to hold the puppet arm over here so you can see the body of the puppet more. It'll hang down nicely. And you can these puppets are often used for parades, parties, protests, because they really lend themselves well to dancing and they're larger than life. So thank you for taking this journey with me. I'm so excited for the Giant Puppet Party on September 26th. I'm so excited to see what you create, the different characters of your puppets, colors, and go to town on accessorizing. I went here with some clouds for my sky. You can add cardboard buttons, add pom-poms, feathers, feather boa, whatever suits your puppet. And at the Giant Puppet Party, the Carousel Players production crew, aka the Prod Squad, Whitney and Ryan, are creating an awesome giant puppet who are going to lead our party. So I'm so excited to see that. My puppet and I will be there with bells on, and I can't wait. I'll see you there. Thanks. Bye. One more note about hair. I forgot to discuss hair because my son puppet doesn't have any. If you want to do a person puppet with hair, I'd recommend doing strips of cardboard around the head. If a character with long hair, you could do a bun or a ponytail just with some strips of cardboard shaped and then painted. And again, you can bend that cardboard to shape it however you want. So bend it, glue it down, paint it. Also, you can use fabric. You could use strips of felt or large pieces of felt, faux fur, and then really anything that you desire based on your character. You could use plastic leaves, plastic flowers, feathers, anything you like. But if you would like to do hair out of cardboard, I'd recommend the strips.